afternoon, everyone. My name is Li Yixian.
My name is Guanshu Yi.
And we're both sophomores from Duke University. And it's an honor for us to be here today to deliver this talk to all of you. So it should be quite obvious on the screen that today we're going to talk about angular animation.
So we're first going to talk about the basic structure and the building blocks of the angular animation component, including keyframes, stagger, query, etc., coupled with a simple demonstration of how it can be used. In the second part, we will show you a simple project we did using all of these functions and how we built it step by step. And in the end, we will talk about the strengths of angular animation and how it compares with other animation modules, such as CSS.
Okay, so first we want to start with the basic structure of animations. So imagine with me how artists create cartoons. They basically first paint out the crucial movements of the characters, and then they add frames in between them to achieve the moving effect. So animation actually works the same. Animation requires at least a starting state and an ending state to achieve the animated effect. So here on the screen, we have two states defined. The first state, state 1, is the word NG China in the color gray and with font size 180 pixels. And the second state, state 2, is also the word NG China in the style with color dark orange and font size 200 pixels. So if we wanted to express the setting in code, that's when we're going to use state function and start function. So what does these two functions do? Basically, state function defines the state that's going to be called at the end of each transition. And start function defines the list of style that is associated with the given state name. So with the example code on the screen, we successfully combine the state with its corresponding styles. So if we want to make this animation really happen, there are another two essential things we have to decide on. The first one is the list of animations that is going to go through when the transition really happens. And second is the timing property of our animation, which for here we decide to go to 0.5 seconds and ease. And that's when we bring transition function and animate function into our discussion. So we can see the example code that in the transition function there are two arguments. The first one is an expression that tells you the direction of transition between states. And the second is the animate function itself, which we know defines the timing property. So after we successfully constructed our animation change word color, we can combine it to the HTML template that with this line of code, as we can see in the example up on the screen, and we'll be able to achieve the animation of smoothly translating from state 1 to state 2 and back to state 1 again. And here is the source code of this animation, just for information.
So now that we know how an angular animation works in principle, let's have a closer look at the first elements we're going to talk about today. Wildcard. So what is wildcard? So wildcard basically is a state that means that it matches any state. It's often represented by an asterisk. It's useful for defining transitions that apply regardless of the HTML element's start or end state. So in other words, we use wildcard when we don't care what the elements start or end states are. Opposite the wildcard, we have the void state, which means that the element does not belong to any state at all. So now that we know that there is the wildcard and void state, what can we do with these states? So void state is extremely useful when we want to indicate that an element is entering the page or if it's leaving the page. So when we want an element to enter the page, we can apply the transition from void state to wildcard, and when we want an element to leave the page, we can use the transition from wildcard to void state. And since void state matches any state, it definitely also matches the void state. Does that make sense? So actually we have a common application. And common application called the column enter and column leave aliases. You basically can tell what those means just by looking at their names, enter and leave. So for the column enter, it enables you for the element to enter the state by giving a transition from void state to wildcard, and vice versa. For the column leave, you can animate the element to leave the page. So here's how it looks from the and one last thing. We can also add the ngIf and ngFor in this example. So as you can see in this example, the column enter will only work when which state is true, and the column leave will only work when which state is false. Let's look at the demonstration. So basically, it already pops out. But when I press the start, it can either enter the page and leave the page. This is achieved through using the column enter and column leave aliases. And you can see them from the source code that is provided here. It takes a while.
Okay, so here is source code. Because we don't have a lot of time. So far, we've discussed about the direct transition between states. So we know that if we want to animate a transition from the color yellow to the color blue, it will go through something sort of like a color gradient like this on the screen. So what if we wanted to add more colors to it? Let's add it in green and some red on the blue side and maybe some pink in the center so it looks crazy. So how do we achieve this transition? Through multiple colors. And that's where we want to bring keyframes function into our discussion. So keyframes function in Angular works pretty similarly with keyframes in CSS. It helps us to create animations that have multiple steps run in sequences. So you can see from example code that there is a list of star functions inside of the keyframes functions. So basically, the star function defines this multiple steps that this animation is going to run through during the course of this animation. And with offsets that inside of the style functions, they have to define the point where each step is with in this animation. So remember the crazy color gradient we have? So we were able to achieve the transition from blue all the way to yellow, and yellow all the way back to blue with keyframe functions. And the source code again.
All right, the fourth one, query and stagger. So what is query? So what query basically does is that it gives the same animation to multiple elements with one line of code. Well, not necessarily one line of code, but with one command. So as you can see in these 4 clips of code, you can animate the entering elements, the currently animating elements, elements that have the tag div, and or with a certain trigger name. So these chosen elements will be performed with the same animation, but individually. And because they can be defined individually, we can define a timing gap between each of these chosen elements and create a delay effect. So as you can see from this given example, the elements that have the tag P have the same animation, but all of these animations are differed by 0.1 second. Let's look at the example. So in this demo, we have 4 different color NG China and 4 lines basically. And when I click start, they will have the same animation, but have a 0.1 second difference. So that's what query and stagger does.
Yeah, and here's the source code of this example again. I know there's a little bit too much, so we're going to skip it very quickly. Okay, so the other possibility that Angular offers to us is the group function. So instead of the successive animations, which we have seen a lot, group function helps us to insert multiple animations that happens in parallel. So we can look at the example code on the screen. There's two animate functions inside of the group function. The first one changed the color of the element to teal, and the second animate function helps us to translate the element that we're animated on along the y-axis for 150 pixels. So these two animations have pretty different timing properties, but with group, we successfully combined together, and we were able to achieve the effect of example 5. So as we click on the start, you will see the color change first, and the translate change second. And there is not that easy to recognize, but there is a time gap in between.
Alright, so that basically sums up our first section of the talk. A brief recap. We talked about the basic structure, keyframes, stagger, query, and group. So a question is, now that we know about these functions, what useful things can we build out of these? A quick survey. How many of you enjoy some good food? Anyone? How can you guys don't like food? Anyways, and how many of you are from Hangzhou or have visited Hangzhou before? I see a few hands, and there are also some people who didn't raise their hands. Well, so now that we are gathered in Hangzhou, and we're both Hangzhou locals, so we thought it might be interesting for us to give you a tour on Hangzhou cuisine, and mostly our favorites. And perhaps you can try them out over this weekend. And now let's have a closer look at what we have.
Okay, so this is basically what our mini project looks like. So first, there is a front page. So you can see here we have the big title, Hangzhou Meishi, and this picture is actually the image of Leifenghan. And then there's a fancy circle rotating the background. And as you click on the title, you will see in the front page slide out, and the text slowly rotate into its position, and it starts to rotate forever. So there are 8 dishes in total on the desk. So I don't know the correct number, but we try our best to sort them out. So we can try to click on one of them. So you will see it will appear in the center of the table. And after we click on it again, so you will see the ingredient will come out. And also we have some description of the dishes along it. And here we have the ingredient list. And let's try a little bit more. Yeah, this is xiaolongbao. And if you can guess it, this one is xihuzhu. Okay.
A little bit fun fact about this is for most of these dishes, we draw them out of pure CSS. But since we're discussing animation today, we will dig into how we draw these dishes. I don't know if you can recognize them, but we did try our best to copy what each of them look like.
Okay. So we know that today's talk is going to be about animations, but okay. But just to, we want you guys to have a better idea of how this project works. So that's why we first want to give you guys an overview on the structure of this project. So these two code examples are basically, I would say, like an extracted HTML skeleton of our project. So in total, we have 9 components in this mini project. The main one, the first one, is the desk fill component, which is on the left side. So basically, this displays the desk that's being rotating forever in the center, and also all the dishes that goes around here. And the other 8 components are foot 1 components going into foot 8 components. So they basically display the stuff that we have. When we click on each of the dishes, something that appear in the middle, and things that come out when we click on the center of the dish in the center. And there is another table that offers more detailed information. I would like to invite you to first look at the relatively column. So we'll be able to see that the HTML elements ranging from plate 1 to plate 8 are actually linked to field 1 ranging to field 8 component respectively. So that's why we will achieve the fact when we click on the smaller version of this plate, there will be a bigger version in the center that will appear. And because today our topic is about animations, so that's what we're going to focus on. So we have 5 angular animations in total in our project, which are blur, background, roll out, on-click bed, in-out, and ingredient appear. And there are 2 of them, which are roll out, ingredient appear, that we want to specifically focus on, because we think there is 2 interesting examples that make us offer us a better insight of the integration of the concept and function before.
Next, let's have a closer look at the animation and understand how each of them work. So the first animation we're going to talk about is the roll out effect. It's the first animation you see after you click the Hangzhou button on the front page, and it leads this appearance of this plate with the dishes. So this animation is actually achieved using keyframes. I don't know if you remember that crazy color gradient earlier, red, blue, green, and some colors I don't remember. But now we're not talking about color, but about positions. By setting the x-axis to different pixels, the rotation angle to be 0, 90 degree, 180 degree, etc., and having an evenly spaced offset, we were able to achieve the fact that the plate is rotating and also rotating to the right.
And the other example we have is the animation ingredient appear. So we would say this is a combo of function, group, query, and stagger that we discussed before. So query and stagger are used together very regularly. So this is, commonly seen. But with this query and stagger combination, we were able to achieve a time delay between the emergence of the image of the ingredient and the name tag that goes along with it.
So a very typical example is that you remember the dishes, and when you click on one of the dishes, the recipe and the ingredients and the description or the story of the dish pops up. So that is the same for all of the 8 dishes, except the word is different, the ingredients different, etc., So in order to write a more concise code, we decided to use reusable animation, which could group the very similar parts together and only change the parameters to indicate the differences between each of the animation. So that's why we decided to use reusable animation.
But how to create reusable animation? Actually, it's pretty easy. It involves 2 steps. So step 1, we need to create a separate TypeScript file and use animation function to define the animation fragment that we're going to be using in the future. So you see here that I created 2 parameters in this animation fragment. If you can, it's not working, but it is called transform into out and transform out to in. So basically, because my possible difference among the similar animations in my project is just the position that each of them is translating to. So that's why I set a parameter here. And in the future, it will be super easy to just insert the value into it and make things specific. So the second step is to import a reusable animation that we created to the component class and reuse it with the reuse animation function. So actually, these 2, for example, should go together, but the pages are too small, so I have to separate them. But you can see here now I am inserting values into the animation, so each of these elements will just translate to their assigned position.
So up to now, the Angular animation has proved to be pretty powerful and very efficient. The basic structure is rather simple, and there's a lot of functions that users can quickly pick up to improve their code. So a question that comes along with it is that, is it a wise choice to use Angular animation for all the cases?
Well, our answer is not necessarily. Because in our project also, we didn't write every single animation with Angular framework. For example, the always rotating non-stop death effect, we write it with CSS. So we figured that it is also very important for us to understand the strength of Angular framework and make the right choice when we're planning for our project.
But still, there are many strengths of Angular animation that makes our project so easy to make. First of all is that the styles and transition can be defined separately, which means that not only can you define the start and end stage of an animation, but you can also specifically tell the program that where the middle stages will be, which adds a lot of flexibility to the code.
And second, the void state. So we've discussed about it a lot before. It just often is a push to add or remove a certain element from the graph page. But try to do it with CSS, it was just much more trouble to deal with.
Third, we can use reusable animation, which can group the similar parts together and only change the parameter to different parameters to indicate the differences in different animation. This will save a lot of trouble of copying and pasting the code into different components. And if you decided to change a characteristic in the future, it will be too complicated to go into each of the components and change the code individually. And Angular provides the animation easy to create the use animation and animation function for us to achieve the reusable animation.
And fourth, Angular enables us to use instance fields as parameters in animation design. So just try it out. You'll find that your animation design will become more dynamic. And there are more and more to be listed. So this basically covers all the content that we have for you today. But we have to say that what we covered today is only a slight peek into the Angular animation have in store for you. So we generally hope that our talk today could be a starting point of your own exploration.